It's the Comedy Slab edition 162, count 'em. I'm Adrian Lacey in the southeast of England. He is Shane O'Connor in the Midlands of England. Lovely to have you along. If it's your first time, a special welcome to you. We put different comedy, be it TV, radio, digital, podcast, whatever, on the notional slab of comedy each week. Prod it about a bit, see who salutes, dissect it, see what we make of it, and give it a score out of 5 each. And that, in theory at least, maths allowing, tots up to a score out of 10. But it's your vote that counts, dear listener. And don't forget to subscribe to us if you enjoy the show, and we'd like you so much to subscribe to the show, regardless of whether you like the show or not. We're just that desperate for numbers. And that sentence works if you just end on the word desperate. So we will get to... it's actually a request by one of our faithful hounds, one of our faithful listeners. In just a moment, it's a Scottish artiste we are going to put on the Comedy Slab. Might be new to you, certainly was new to me. Always grateful for your suggestions. But in the meantime, the Shanester, we're going to attempt a feat we've never successfully done before, which is to not talk too much and squeeze 3 items into our comedy news before we start prodding Limmy about. What are you going to start with?
Oh, it's mad, isn't it? Because like normally we're sitting there going, scratching our heads, going, "Well, what we're going to talk about?" And then all of a sudden, there seems to be, other than XYZ program has been commissioned, there seems to actually be some comedy news. The one that I saw that caught my attention first of all, Adrian, was the fact that Lee Evans retired in 2014, was it? I think something like that.
I can't believe it's that far back, but that's what you were telling me before we hit record. Yeah,
he didn't he announce it on the Jonathan Ross show? I'm sure I saw in this article.
Oh
somewhere.
Yes, and in fact, I think that's preserved for all time, or until the lawyers take it down. It's on YouTube. That's where I saw it. Yeah.
But it, like, everybody thought it was a bit of a joke, but it wasn't. The truth of the matter is he'd been working like a dog for quite a number of years. He'd been doing these massive shows.
Can I stop you there? How hard do dogs work?
Well, I mean, this was a particularly hard-working dog. It was probably something like a sniffer dog at an airport.
Oh yeah. Well, they don't stop, do they? Really?
Sniff maybe one of those, those fire sniffing dogs that can sniff out accelerants and stuff like that, that wears the little things on his feet, little shoes.
I'm not sure I'm a specialist in this area, but anyway, we need to move on because we've only got a few minutes to squeeze 3 stories in.
Amazingly, he's been spotted. They reckon it's been him spotted out on a bicycle. Although when I read the comments to the article, they're going, "Well, that doesn't look like him." I don't know. There's been this thing. Apparently, Tom Cruise has been in Birmingham this past week.
Oh, I heard that today. Yeah,
Mission Impossible 7, and all these photos have been popping up. They're either photoshopped, so they're not really him. You see, him in the bullring market from the 1970s, which hasn't existed since about 1982, or the other one. Somebody said, "It looks like what happens if you order a Tom Cruise off Wish, the Chinese site." That's
a doll of him? Do you mean?
Yeah, well, it didn't look at it. They said they thought it might have been his body double who went into an Indian restaurant in Birmingham and ordered 2 chicken tikka masalas on the house. But anyway, so yeah, I don't. But a lot of people are saying it's this Lee Evans. But I mean, if it is just, what is the matter? Why can't we just let the guy just? I don't know. Is it me or?
No, a lot of it is envy that someone can afford to retire that young. But as you say, he did work. Whether it was in a canine fashion, he did work very hard for years.
He's 57. I mean, he's not that young, is he?
He's not a poulet de printemps, as John Sessions would have said. Not a spring chicken en français.
Oh, right.
How's your French? Oh, is it the way you're sitting? So well, actually, you know more than I do about celebrity juice, so this might be another one for you. Well, it's being axed. Lee Francis, very talented guy. I've always liked as the more blue act Bo Selector. Never got into Keith Lemon, although I can see why he's more of a mainstream character because he doesn't turn the air quite so blue. But I imagine you're not going to be wearing black armbands for Celebrity Juice being axed.
No, well, I was delighted when I saw that it was going to be axed because Not that I've got any particular malice or axe to grind with that particular program, but no, it was just because the ITV2 was saying that the reason that they're going to axe that particular show is because they are finally turning against the panel show,
which you turned against in 1985, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's finished, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter how you dress it up. It doesn't, it's still a pig in lipstick, isn't it? It doesn't matter what you do with it. It's you can put modern day stars on for the kids.
Isn't it just a framework to hang on some gags?
Well, yeah. I mean, the framework for hanging is also
a noose.
Yeah.
Here is the comedy noose.
A gallows to be.
That's your gallows humour, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, no. I just thought, this is great. But then it's for all the wrong reasons. They said that this is the boss of ITV2, Paul Mortimer. He said this, it's all old-fashioned language, and he even went on to say old-fashioned grammar. I think he meant old-fashioned language, but he's getting confused with himself. But. And you can't. How can you say that? Because they said things like "Good night, we'll see you next week."
That's really the reason he gave.
Is it? Yeah, that was one of the things that he said. He said it's he said we're and you think you're using like a 40-year-old, probably not that much, a 30-year-old mechanism in the panel show, and you're worried about that they say good night and we'll see you next week because it's old-fashioned, outdated language. And you just think, oh my word, I think the trouble is this is middle-aged men trying to guess what young kids like. As a mate of mine used to say, they could tell you the square root of a pickled onion, but they couldn't get the lid off the jar. and
well, I think you'll find we both know the square root of pickled onion and can remove the jar.
Exactly. You just smash it on the floor, don't you?
Exactly. And let the dog lick up the vinegar.
Exactly.
But watch my sleight of hand here as I say, well, I think the panel show has got some relevance because I've been watching old footage of the much lamented Sean Lock. This, I'm not allowed to say this evening, so I'll say an hour or so before this very recording, which is true. I was watching on the YouTube, which I believe young people under 70 might look at, well, maybe people over 70, just to be relevant to everyone. But I was watching stuff of his. I wouldn't sit through a whole countdown, so maybe our ITV2 executive is right to that extent. I don't know, but I'm not a young kid anyway. But it proves my point that it's just a framework for Sean Lock's marvellous, apparent freewheeling, possibly scripted, doesn't matter, just very funny. Isn't that going to have relevance forevermore? Not just Sean Lock's footage, but any panel show with a decent, funny comedian on.
Therein lies the problem. I think is that if you fill them with people of the calibre of Sean Lock, but you can't, and I think you can't for probably a good reason, can you? With panel shows, is that then there's a high rate of competitiveness between the panel members, and it kind of they get in the way of each other. Maybe that's why they have people on who aren't funny. I mean, they have people on panel shows. I think I wouldn't have them on the TV. Never mind them on panel shows.
Anyway, I was going to take us seamlessly, but clearly the scene is showing like the back of a 1940s stockings. 15 stories high. Sean Lock show, which we have indeed put on the Slab quite some time ago in the years of Slab, is going on iPlayer. You spotted this. I've found it on the NME, but I'm sure it's across all good news organisations.
Yeah,
good news, huh? But why does it take his death before they do it?
And why can't they put it? We've had this conversation about Channel 4 and their huge back catalogue. That they've got on their All 4 website, and why we always kind of assumed there was some sort of they didn't want to pay the money, or it was a royalties issue, or it was a permissions issue, but they seem to be able to do it.
Well, perhaps we'll never know the conversations that happened in backwaters and corridors of the BBC and elsewhere, but. Yeah, it's one of those things. If the will is there, where there's a will, there's a way, the old phrase.
Yeah.
Anyway, the good news is that...
Where there's a willy what?
I think it's time to move on. But given that last sequence was edited down from 3 hours, I think I've proven your point that we can't do 3 stories in the comedy news quickly.
I think you've done very well to just take 3 sentences.
Right, to the main matter in hand, which is the dissection of Limmy. Well, not him himself. He's a living, breathing human being. But we're going to dissect one of his shows. In fact, it's Limmy's homemade show. Is it episode 3? Remind me, Shane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there were only 3 in this series.
Okay.
And by all accounts, there won't be another series either, will there? So...
Has he said that for sure? I read some slightly disturbing things about his mental health, poor lad, on Wikipedia. I'm just going to read from a DM, direct message, which comes from one of our loyal listeners. It's hi to Blair Carlton, the wonderfully named Blair Carlton, who follows, as indeed you can, the Comedy Slab on Twitter at Comedy Slab. And because he follows us and we follow him, he could send this direct message saying, thoroughly enjoyed the latest episode as per usual. I'm sounding like a DJ, aren't I, Shane?
Yeah.
Could do a radio show given enough work.
Could you please say hi to my mum?
I'd like to give a big shout out. Forgive me for the message. No, we won't. But it's impertinent, Blair. But I wanted to make a polite suggestion for a potential future slab, if I may. Apparently, this is a few weeks ago now, because we've had other ones in the offing. And we finally got to you, so apologies, Blair, for the delay. But a few weeks ago, I mentioned Billy Connolly at the end of the last episode. Blair is a proud Scotsman. I am, of course, a proud quarter Scot. And Blair goes on to say there's understandably been very little Scottish material covered on the podcast to date. Now, why is that understandable? It's probably unforgivable. Can you think, here's a quiz for you. I nearly said Blair. No, Shane, in real time, Can you think of at least one show that's Scottish that we put on the Comedy Slab previously?
Yeah, straight to mind comes Absolutely.
Absolutely. Stonybridge. It's nae Stony and there's nae bridge in it. We did do that, but the one that Blair mentioned, so obviously we've had at least 2 Scottish shows, now 3 as of this week. Bags, Fags and Hags, if I've said that correctly.
Fags, Mags and Bags.
That's the one. He's thrown me by... Yeah, maybe it's a joke anyway. So he's recommended Brian Limond, a.k.a. Limmy, who is, as you've gathered, on the slab this week. Blair says he did a sketch show, that is, Limmy did a sketch show a few years ago just called Limmy's Show, which picked up quite a cult following. Limmy's also written a couple of books, short stories and autobiography. He wanted to put this one on the slab. I'm assuming it's made in lockdown. Have you managed to establish that? I mean, he shot it all himself. He's very talented. It's a one-man band, Limmy. Edited, directed, and so on.
I don't know if it just reflects his videos that he makes for YouTube. I don't know, because it's got a YouTube feel about it, hasn't it? So I think I kind of got the impression that it was just kind of made to fit in with the look of the rest of his stuff, really.
Right. Anyway, I suppose I've got to throw to you our regular question to each other, Shane, when we take it in turns to set homework. When I set it for you last week, or indeed Blair set it for us, what was your reaction? Was it kind of Limmy who?
No, I mean, I was aware of it. I mean, I like you. I don't like you that much. But
I was going to say, that's the first time you said that in 10 years of knowing me.
Let me just do another one for the edit. I like you,
comma.
It still sounds the same in my head. I don't know what's happening there. No, I just wanted to say that I love Scotch people as well. You know, I've got a deep affinity with the Scotch.
You can answer the correspondence.
I've got a deep
Scotch is an egg
Scotches.
or a whiskey. Yeah, carry on.
Always love the Scotch as me. And so no, I knew of him, and I'd seen little snippets on it because I'm a terrible YouTube surfer. Well, I'm quite a good YouTube surfer actually.
Too good.
To go at 4 o'clock in the morning. I think I really must go to sleep now.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was aware of him, but not to the extent where I'd sat down and, you know, consumed a whole episode of his work. So kind of that was the feeling really. I was thinking, oh, okay, well, this would be quite interesting because I get the opportunity to sit down and, and have the discipline to watch a whole episode.
Okay, well, be warned, we're coming to your headline in just a mo. We've got the first of two audio clips now for anyone who's not heard or seen Limmy's show or any of his YouTube outpourings. I only realise, I mean, we say this every now and again, it's only when you sit down and try and find two good, reflective, authentic audio clips that do a show justice that you realise for a TV show, it's very visual. And so this one's more wordy. We do see the fireplace to which he refers. And I think this is a bit of a tease in that there wasn't time in this clip to get the whole sketch in. But see what you make of this. And I'll come to you for your headline, as I say, afterwards. So this is Limmy reflecting on his fireplace.
Just showing you about my house here. This is my living room. And this here is my fireplace. I love it. We don't use it to heat the house up. We've got radiators for all that, obviously, but it's just a brilliant thing to have, especially during winter, like when it's cold and dark outside, and you can go like that, oh, you know what would be good? Let's get a fire on the go. Just lovely and cosy, brilliant thing to have during winter. Mind you, it can be a wee bit of a pain in the arse to get started sometimes because you've got to stick this wood down first, kindling. You've got to put that down first, and then you put the coal on top of it. And you've got to put firelighters, wee paraffin blocks, under the kindling. And the whole thing sits on top of this, like a grate or a grill, like with gaps so that the ash falls down. But because of that, the firelighters end up falling down the wee gaps. You're like, oh no, and you try and grab a firelighter and you try and put it back in, but you've got to move the coal back out the way again, you've got to move the kindling out the way, and you've got to put the firelighter underneath it all, then move the kindling on top and move the coal on top, and by moving it all about, that sometimes knocks the firelighter back through the gap, and you've got to, it's a wee bit of pain in the arse.
Do you know, it's, if you listen to the start and the end of that clip, he starts off saying, "This is my fire, I love it," and then ends up with that line. I think it is in that. I think it was a great example to choose from the show, really, because it is a good example of how he takes you on this journey. This is it's quite an interesting. It's quite an interesting way of doing comedy, I think. I mean, I guess we'll talk about this a bit more, but shall I give you a headline anyway? Let you know where I'm coming from. Yeah,
please do.
I got two, and they're both very similar, so forgive me. But my first one was "Give Me Some Limmy."
Oh,
and my other one was "Limmy Some Lovin'."
Oh, recurring theme. I thought it might turn into Limmy, 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 A Man After Midnight or something. In honour of ABBA's recording some new songs, but that's not comedy news. So you liked it, one assumes.
Yeah, I had a... No, don't get me wrong, it wasn't... I didn't come away from it thinking that is the most rip-roaringly funny piece of comedy that I've ever seen in my life. And it is against the backdrop that I have this theory, and I don't mean to offend anybody when I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway because I don't think it's offensive when I say it. But I do think Scottish comedy is different. I don't really think I've worked out how, but I just think it is.
You're such a tease. Actually, it's not the first time you've said that, and the thing is, we're generalising, aren't we? I mean, yeah, English
do you know
humour
what I
is
mean
different
by
to
that,
Scottish. Well, yeah, but I'm not an authority on Scottish comedy. That's why I was glad to be introduced to a new artiste. It should be different, though, shouldn't it? All cultures, all nations are different, so the comedy should reflect it, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that geographically they are so close to us, and I don't think you could say this. I've not really, and you know, you then have to start picking apart who it is you're talking about. But I don't think I could say the same about Welsh comedy.
But the thing is, there's so many sub-genres of any comedy anywhere, aren't there?
I guess I'm talking about non-mainstream, aren't I, really? Because if you think, like, if you take Irish comedy, for example, for me, there's a spectrum which starts with Father Ted over here and Mrs. Brown's Boys over here. And there's a...
Hang on, were the two here's in different places?
Well, no, you fool. Look, that one's there, isn't it? Look, can't you see it? I wouldn't mind, but Mrs. Brown's Boys over here, was in blue as well, so it's a different colour.
Hang on. Well, the confusing thing about Mrs. Brown's Boys, if you're saying here, actually, seriously, it's an RTE production. RTE, of course, being the Irish broadcaster. I don't need to tell you, as the son of an Irish immigrant.
Radio television era, mate. I know all about RTE.
Well, how's about you? But then it's made in Glasgow, but it's BBC production. I think it counts as Glaswegian production made. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, it's the, as they say on tins of grapefruit juice, is the produce of more than one country.
Right.
So be it. Okay, I'm not sure where we go with that.
No.
Although
Sorry.
I worked out for my own self pretty early on in watching this Limmy's homemade show, episode 3, that his audience was for Scotland. And it's not simply because it's branded BBC Scotland, and we should say for legal purposes, but it's a Permo Productions show for BBC Scotland. I'm assuming you've, well, of course it's Scottish law, but do they still come under Companies House? They must do. Is it
Yeah.
Kingdom?
Permo is his and his partner Lynn McGowan's company.
Right. Is she? So she's in the biz, or just named?
She is listed as a comedian, and I'm not.
Right.
This is not a facetious thing that I'm saying. She's listed as a comedian, but I couldn't find her doing anything funny. So
maybe it's funny money. No, I'm just joking. That is a joke. Don't sue.
Do you know what I mean? She became famous or infamous. She berated on Twitter a security guard for telling her to smile. And she said he doesn't know what, and she went into this kind of like misandrous rant, and it all got a bit out of hand, I think, really. But yeah, so I kind of looked her up to see if I could see her doing stand up or anything like that, but I couldn't really find.
Well, that's the funny thing about Limmy. Again, no pun intended. You search for Limmy and stand up. I'd assumed, I think wrongly, that he was a stand up act. He
has
more
done stand up. Yeah.
Is it? Well, I couldn't find it. I'd be very happy to be linked to it. And if you find it, do put it up on our Twitter feed. I've seen him more as what I would call a raconteur. I would bracket him more. Now, shoot me down in flames if you think I'm wrong on this, but more a David Sedaris type, where he will. I've seen readings of his short stories, daft wee stories, as one compilation is called, although with a more convincing Scottish accent, Glaswegian accent when he does it.
I think absolutely. The only thing I would add to that is I think that he's like a kind of David Sedaris light, in as much as there is more meat on the stories that David Sedaris tells.
Do you mean more depth and length?
Yeah, well, there's more depth to them for a start. Is that, you know, I can't see David Sedaris writing a piece about his fire. And again, I'm not being critical of Limmy, and I'm not.
Well, that's for a different format. I mean, Sedaris hasn't done that type of show, has he? What you would call a sketch show?
No, I think you're right, and I agree with you. But Limmy is still more to the comedic side. And David Sedaris is more to the literary side, I think, is the best way of describing it. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he's not. This is why I said I found it a really fascinating. I found it a bit exhausting, to be honest with you. It shouldn't have been 30 minits long for a start, should it? They should have cut it up into 15-minute episodes. I
did wonder about that because I started listing. I've just got words to sort of trigger memories here, and I've listed. I would have thought there's at least 20 sketches. I think it's more than that, isn't it, in a half-hour period?
Well, I did more or less the same, and then they started going back, and he started picking up from where he left off, and then
it's sort of a running gag, or you know, a cluster of the same theme, and you come back to it later, which works quite well. I can see what you mean about 15 minutes. I think that could work, and. Particularly, I mean, maybe he didn't want a half-hour show, but you don't turn it down if you're offered it, I guess, because, for the YouTube generation, it's all about individual sketches more.
Yes.
Isn't it 5-minuters and so on?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the guy at ITV too. I think the one thing we'd all agree on is that, and it's not just young people, I think we've all kind of become accustomed to, much quicker get in there, get the gang, get out of there kind of thing. And, whether that's an American influence or whether that's youngsters' influence, I don't know. But you're right. They were coming so thick and fast. I mean, I was having to stop it in order to sit down and write down just the briefest of note about what it was about. But that was the one thing for me. I just thought the 30-minute form, it was too long. It was just too long. I was absolutely exhausted by the time they finished it.
You were probably logging for an ad break, which you're going to have a long wait for on the BBC. Well, for the foreseeable, at least. What did you think about the range of themes? Because it is a one-man show, so it's generally him to camera, sometimes him layered on top of him, as it were. We may or may not get to that particular sketch, but
I mean, I loved. I mean, I loved the way that he obviously. He's an observational comedian as well, isn't he? And he obviously has no trouble at all finding material from things that he sees every day. I mean, I laughed out loud. There was one particular.
Was it
monologue.
The football one by any chance?
No, it was the graffiti one.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where he started off talking about graffiti and then ended up talking about murals and he says, it's disgusting what they've done with this, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just that wonderful misunderstanding that you kind of think there was bin day, when you got to put the bins out and this is what it's like, and there was just wonderful observational stuff, and I thought you couldn't second guess what the next sketch was going to be, could you?
No, and sometimes it was nudging or sort of dusting off a thing that you'd thought about, which is a sign of good observational comedy, something you thought about but never actually articulated.
Yeah.
I mentioned football there. It's that effect, and we've just had it with the World Cup, where the camera on a live football match picks out someone in the crowd or a small group, and then you can virtually count something like 2.5 seconds before someone's nudged them and said, you're on camera, and then they cut away immediately.
Yeah.
But, it's much funnier when he does it and he illustrates it. And I think he's such an all-rounder. He's certainly very talented, but none of it is really belly laughs. But he might say, well, except about a laugh about his belly, perhaps, in the opening sequence. But it's still, I don't feel cheated by that. And I'm not going to use the term smile-com because it's a sketch show. Is it smile sketch? I don't know. But it's just sufficiently creative and oblique to be interesting. And then I was interested in his, completely unadulterated, strong Glaswegian accent. And, when I grew up, as a kid, you wouldn't have heard that, not on, certainly on network TV, although you could argue that, well, it's still not appearing in England. But thanks to, not currently with this show, but, at other times it would be on BBC iPlayer shortly after going out. So that has sort of blurred the boundaries a bit. You can watch stuff from a different part of the UK to the one you're in. But I'd read previously, I don't know if you've heard this, that there's two accents which have got stronger, if anything, over the years, not weaker. One is the Glaswegian accent. This is UK accents. The other one, do you know what that might be?
Is it in the northeast?
No, northwest. It's actually a Liverpudlian accent's got stronger.
Oh.
I mean, how do you measure these things? But people who do research for a living or for a PhD.
Yeah.
But I can believe that because you certainly hear that, and no one should be ashamed of their accent. And the thing is, if you don't hear it, you never get better at understanding it. So if you shut it out and say, well, I can't make sense of the Glaswegian accent, well, you're never going to.
No.
But if you're in Glasgow, of course, you can't choose not to understand RP or received pronunciation, BBC English, as it used to be called, or South East England accent and so on. And he does a very good English accent, does he not, at one point, being on a train?
Well, I always think it's rubbish, I'll be honest with you. And
did you think that one was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it was slight tongue-in-cheek sending us up anyway.
Well, but that's, to me, that sounded like the English accent that Scottish people always do.
Well, they'll probably say, well, for years we put up with a sort of generic Scottish accent from English people.
Well, I worked with a guy who was Scottish, so I can't be racist because I know a Scotsman. And
did he have a kilt and a tartan hat with sort of ginger hair and a bobble on top?
But he didn't wear it all the while.
Is his name Jimmy? I think I know him.
He only wore it to go to fancy dress parties. And he always used to do an English accent, and I'd say, "Oh, that's terrible." And he'd go, "I know." But I used to do a Scottish accent, and he reckoned that it was better than some of the Scottish accents that his Scottish relatives had. So
yeah, well, he just said that to you, but he didn't say that to them when you weren't in the room.
He just said that to me whilst holding a knife to my throat. No, so yeah, but his accent. I mean, I think he's really photogenic, and his accent. I could listen to him read out the phone book, to be quite honest with you, because I think it's just got a wonderful sort of. It's like it's almost an entertainment in itself. Do you know what I mean? It's that I just
it's
love
beautifully
it.
sculpted. The vowels,
and the things that they say as well. It's like the slang that goes with it. You know, and I know people would, when they say, "Do you know what I mean?" They said, "You ken what I mean."
It's high time, methinks, for the second of our two audio clips. And this one answered the thing that was sort of burbling away in my subconscious from pressing play at the beginning. As to, well, I'm going to put the question to you, Shane. Did you find yourself wondering who his audience was in his head?
I don't think he thinks along those lines. I think we're talking about old-fashioned language at ITV2 we're talking about. I don't think he thinks. I don't think that even enters his head, to be honest with you. I think if you asked him, I think he would be amazed that anybody actually watches it. I do. I think because, I mean, bear in mind, the guy was a computer programmer for years.
That's why he's got all the technical skills to edit and do all of that himself.
But he wasn't. Oh, I've always wanted to be in comedy. I've always wanted to be in entertainment. He's not that kind of guy, is he? He's actually just like kind of almost venting what he thinks.
Well, to be honest, even though I only cut it an hour or so ago, I can't remember if I included the phrase in this particular clip, but it is in this sketch, so if people hear the whole thing. For me, it answers my question, and my answer is different to yours. But let's see if this makes sense of that.
Go on.
This is Limmy's great Scottish idea.
I've got an idea. I've got this idea for something. It's the sort of idea that I'm reluctant to tell everybody about, in case somebody steals it and then they get all the credit. But I suppose if I tell you the idea here, then this video serves as a record that I was the first to come up with. And the reason I don't want anybody getting credit for this idea isn't because I think it's going to make me rich. No, it's because, and I know this is going to sound daft, but it's because I'm Scottish. You see, I was at the Transport Museum here in Glasgow. I was going to go in and give you a wee tour. I wanted to show you the steam engines. I know, steam engines. This is meant to be a sketch show, and I'm talking about steam engines. I'm just proud of the fact that James Watt, a fellow Scot, invented the steam engine, and it changed the world. Well, it turns out he didn't. He didn't invent the steam engine. No, really. Just like how John Logie Baird didn't really invent the telly. Just like all these other inventions the Scots are supposed to have given the world. And then you look it up and that's not quite the truth, it didn't really, and I don't know, it just sort of breaks your heart a wee bit. But don't worry, fellow Scots, because now I've got this idea.
Oh, you're a teaser, aren't you?
I am, aren't I? Sorry, the time ran out on us, I'm afraid.
Okay, but go on. And
well, so the phrase was fellow Scots. I thought that was quite telling.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't even pick it up. That would be the third time I've heard it, and I still didn't really pick it up. Again, it's that thing about I don't think that the person talking to me is talking exclusively to me. I'm not sure that people do. I don't know. I don't know.
It's a mystery, isn't it, broadcasting? I mean, the old cliche is it's not one person broadcasting to hundreds of thousands or a million. It's one person broadcasting to one person a million times.
Yeah.
But maybe you felt you'd sort of snuck in at the back of some Scottish comedy club, snuck under the radar, and were enjoying it yourself amongst, I don't know, the locals, as it were, in quotes.
Yeah, I found myself constantly amazed. I don't know if you noticed this, how clever he was at not going into things the obvious way. He did a thing like a who do you think you are thing. And I don't know if you remember, but the in was he drank from a cup and he went, "Look at how I drink my tea," with his little finger out. And he went from there, and I just thought, what a brilliant, like, he could have started that so many other different ways. But
hence you don't see it coming.
Yeah, because it's a natural thing that look at that, I'm just drinking a cup of tea here. Oh, I've got my little pinky out. And he just took it all from there. I thought it was so clever. It reminded me that it was Armstrong and Miller who did the sketch about Alexander Armstrong went off to see about his grandmother. I actually looked it up on YouTube because I thought it was bugging me. I couldn't think who'd done it. Yeah. And I found it, and they were saying, "Oh yes, your grandmother. She was a prostitute." He said, but she wasn't always a prostitute. I'm paraphrasing this. She wasn't always a prostitute. Later on, she became a brothel keeper, so she's obviously moved up into management.
Yeah, and was it her birth certificate or a census from 1891?
The census form, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he came away. He said, "To be honest with you, I'm always a bit more interested in my father's side." And then, so he went off to see this old boy who was a little scout with his father, and it turned out that his father was quite interested in giving sweets to children. But the guy who they went to interview is actually Jeff McGivern, you know, the actor, the comedy actor we always rave about, who was in that Lee Mack thing.
Oh yes, that was shot in real time, or unfolds in real time, right?
Yeah, it was a much younger Jeffrey McGivern, which it was so funny. I had to look that up.
It must be time to give scores out of 5 for Mr. Limmy.
Scores on the lavatory doors. I teetered.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Teeter ye not, I would say.
I thought, I'm going to have a teeter. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, I teetered between. I'm still teetering now. That's why I'm pontificating.
Oh, right. You're buying time.
I am. I'm sad to say. I don't know. I suppose I've got to really mark it on what it is. If he'd have had some, like, one other person maybe to bounce off, and if they'd have done 15-minute episodes, I'd have given it a 4.
That's 2 ifs.
Yeah, as it is, I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay. Well, I'm teeter-free. I'm teeter-total. I'm going for 4, although I fully understand. I decided that before, so I can't be swayed by your teetering, you little teeterer. But I fully understand the 2 provisos there. I think we've rehearsed all the arguments. I've got a lot of admiration for him.
Yeah.
Didn't come out with a huge belly laugh, but an interesting artiste. And so thanks to Blair Carlton once again for that. But one to watch, I think. Although I hope he stays in the biz. There's some, again, his wiki entry looks like he might be teaching himself. You know, does he stay in the biz and just do other things? But a talent to watch, I think.
I mean, from one of the articles that I'd read and the bits and quotes that he'd see, he didn't have a good time making it, did he, by the sound of it?
No, and we probably don't know the half of it, but I think there's plenty of people in the biz who will recognise with his, identify with his struggles there. Anyway, time for you to put something on the slab of shame or fame. What's it to be, Shane?
Well, I've been teetering on that one as well.
Not more teetering.
Oh, I tell you.
You've hit your teeter limit, surely, for 1 week.
I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm just, I used to be indecisive, but I still am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was between 2. I'm going to go with the one that I first thought of. I am taking an absolute punt.
Which strangely is what people call you.
They do. They say I'm a complete punt. I'm going to go for it. This is. I'm going back to radio.
Okay.
I don't expect you to have heard of it because I hadn't heard of it, but it is one that is in my collection.
Right.
That was on Radio 4 at one time, and curiously enough, it's a sitcom written by a guy called Dave Lamb. And Dave Lamb, you won't... do you know Dave Lamb? Do you know the name?
I kind of feel I know the name, but I could be wrong.
He is the guy that does the voiceover to... I can't think of the name of it now. That cooking program where they
Master Chef?
No, where they all go to each other's houses and they all have a
Come Dine With Me.
Come Dine With Me. He's the voiceover from that, and he's a comedian. I mean, that was his. I think he might describe himself as a voiceover now. I don't know, or a voice artist. But he wrote a sitcom which lasted for 2 series actually, called Hobby Bobbies.
Hobby Bobbies.
Yeah, which kind of does what it says on the tin, really. I mean, there's no prize for guessing what that's about.
Is this Special Constables?
Yes. And that's what I'm going to whack on the slab for next week. I thought we'd go with episode 1 from series 1 so we all know what it's about, because I know nothing about it other than the title.
Right.
And that it was written by Dave Lamb. And it's an episode called Dangerous Minds. I'm not even sure if this is available or where it's available anymore, because I say it's one that I've had for quite a long time. So, but yeah, Hobby Bobbies by Dave Lamb, Series 1, Episode 1, Dangerous Minds for next week.
Dangerous minds think alike. I'm just scribbling that down. Thank you very much. If you'd like to suggest a show, we don't guarantee we're going to do every suggestion. We reserve the right and all of that. But since Blair Carlton has opened our minds, you might wish to as well. As I say, on Twitter, we are at Comedy Slab. Do follow us there. We're also at Comedy Slab. We have a Facebook page. Do like that, please. Recommendation to friends and family be hugely appreciated, as would a generous star rating on Apple Podcasts, iTunes. I always get stuck on that one, but whatever they're called. This week, be nice to... for you to say nice things about us, and we'll say nice things about you. And you never know. Not that we're holding you over a barrel, but we might actually put your favourite show on the slab one of these fine weeks.
I don't think we ever have not done it where people have suggested them, because they've all been such tremendous and variously different suggestions, haven't they? Which is quite nice. So it's a nice one. Don't forget you can grab hold of us wherever you fancy.
My love handles,
including Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio.
I thought you were going to say Coventry,
Spotify. You can on the Ring Road, anywhere around there. Wherever you get your podcast from, we're generally there. If we're not, please do let us know, because we would like to know. But thank you very much for your company. Until next time, just to upset everybody at ITV2. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week. And I'm not allowed to say that anymore, am I? Because the kids won't understand what I'm saying.
And it's good evening from him.
I know that is going back. You have to Google that one.